Greetings and welcome back to Becoming a Published Author is Fun. Now, if you don't understand that, simply go to episode 8 where I explain it. But we have now reached episode 20, sort of a landmark for us here, the 20th episode. And so this we're looking at viewpoint again. Last time we looked at viewpoint, we were looking at first person. Today we're going to be looking at the viewpoint, and we're looking at the third person. And then the next video we'll actually go into another viewpoint that you might find exciting. But right now I want you to look at third person. So what I've done here is I'm showing you the advantages and disadvantages, and I'm going to put a little check mark where I think it belongs. So the first thing I want you to look at here, just a review in first person. We talked about it being like I, me, so forth, and that is you, the author, being the main character. Well, in third person, you, the author, are talking about the primary character as well as the other characters. And so that's a major difference, a different viewpoint altogether. But so now you're going to use terms like or him rather, her. You might use he, she, things of this nature. Your pronouns are going to be different, more less personal, more I guess you call it interpersonal, otherwise, other people, somebody other than yourself. And so you have a natural separation between the author and the character. I don't have that down here, but that is part of this. Reader sees only what the author shows. This, I'm going to put this over here as an advantage. The reader sees only what the author shows. So the author shows the character, the main character. And the reader sees that. But the author might also show other characters, or the reader will see that. Other scenes, the reader will see that. A lot of different things that the reader will see. I won't get down into that in more detail further on here. But it's very important to understand that as the author, I'm only, whatever I write down in the book is what the reader is going to see. Now, if I want to share thoughts, I can include them. And remember, I use italics, and that's the way I'm going to talk from now on, is that when I use thinking, italics, you can use whatever method you want. That's the one I favor. And so I will, if I'm talking about thoughts, I will mention that it's italics being used. And so if there's thinking going on, you're going to see it. If you're the reader, you're going to see it. Things of this nature. Is there a disadvantage to that? Well, yes, there is. For instance, I know, as the author, that certain things are going to happen, and I don't include that in that first part. You only see them as they develop. So this is, let me just change this a little bit. What we'll do is put this check mark over here. And this is as develops. So as the scenes, as the story develops, the reader sees only what the author shows. Over here, it's a disadvantage because you don't see the future. So that's a disadvantage. So you are seeing the story. Now, if you cheat and go ahead and read what the future says, then that's a different story. But if you're reading the book from page 1 and going forward that way naturally, then you're only going to see it as it develops. And if it's a mystery, You might be trying to figure out the mystery, trying to solve the mystery. Now, if you cheat or skip ahead, you're going to see the future. But I have no control over you as the author, so that is something totally in the reader's control there. But that is the only disadvantage, really, of this here. You're showing what the author shows. But, I don't know, I'll add one more. You don't see it's kind of the same end result. It's kind of the same as not seeing the future, but you might have a scene here, and the end result could take place in that same scene. It can take place in that same chapter, or I'm not talking here about the end of the book. This is more the end of the book. This here is within the storyline itself. You don't see ahead. So let's put that. Let's do it that way. You don't see ahead, so that you don't get too bogged down with details here. You don't see ahead. Now, you as an author could do this. In this part where as it develops, you could have one character warn another character, perhaps a sub-character warning the primary character, that if you do this, this is what's going to happen. It's a warning of what could happen up ahead. That's perfectly fine to do, and it might add a little spice to your story and stuff like that to have something like that happen. But in actuality, the characters don't really see what's going to happen ahead. They can guess at it. They can do all the things that you can do. Guess, surmise, they can plan for it. All these different things that you as an individual can do, they can do there. But they just can't see ahead. They don't have, they're not prophetic. The book, they don't have the right or the ability to go ahead to see what's going on. They're going to find out as it develops. Now, let's look at this. Here's an example here of a scene. A character is in the scene, your primary character. What does he see? Well, he's only seeing the now. He only sees the now. There are many scenes that can take place in a chapter. Well, what does he see in a chapter? Now. Maybe there's 20 chapters, and what's he seeing by chapter 15? Now. He's seeing now, and he's also seeing the past. He won't see the end result until he gets to the end. So it's still the same thing. He doesn't see ahead. He sees the now of that scene. Another thing he sees now in any division scene, he only sees the characters. And that is basically the characters in that scene. Now, he may have been in other scenes in which other characters were a part of. So what he knows as the primary character is he knows what he knows. He knows only what he has seen, what he has experienced, or maybe what he has been told. That's all. There is a whole set of other characters. Other scenes. Actions. And results are all in the future that he does not see. He doesn't see any of this. I'm going to put this down a little bit just so you see that. So he doesn't see any of this right here. Now, I have you can see this storyline. These two are, we'll do them both together because there's a lot of similarities between the two. The storyline is your entire story. You, the author, have it in your head. So again, people, the reader is only knowing what's going on in the now. Now, the reader is better off than the character is. Here we were talking about the character before, but the reader does see other scenes, does see other characters, does see what's going on elsewhere in the story. And so they're getting all this information like this, and then they're processing it in their own brain. And as the story goes on, they're seeing, maybe, hopefully, they're seeing this going on. It's a very slow process, and they going right like that. And then finally, the conclusion of the matter. All comes together. No loose threads. You got to watch out for those loose threads. But the third person, the character only sees the now. The reader also sees the now, but he can see the other characters. He can see other characters. You can see the other scenes, so forth. All that. So the only difference between that you see here is the difference between the primary character and the reader. The primary character only sees what he sees, hears, so forth, and then the reader sees what's going on at the same time. But again, it's still the now. The now, and as you move forward, it'll be the now and the past, or the past and now, however you want to say it. And so, third person is the most popular way of writing. It's very, very effective, easy to learn, and you can develop these, and you can get into some more complex issues later on, which in the course we do get into. But the thing is here is you can get into different areas here, a very different area from first person. There it was you, the author, are also you, the primary character, and it had its own problems between you had to make sure that the author part stays over there in the author part. But here you have the third person, and it's a typical average story theme or method, however you want to viewpoint. The thing is this, that you are telling about, and you bring in the characters out. That's why you want to use as much of the character themselves to tell your story rather than you narrating it. But the thing is this, they only know the now. Even the reader only knows the now. They just have a broader picture. When you get over here and you get to the end of the book, that's when you see all the rest of this. You see how did the characters develop? How did the scenes end up? Actions, the results, how do they all come together? And hopefully, if you've done a good job, this will be just like I was demonstrating, like that, and you can just come up to it, and then they'll say, "Oh, well, I really enjoyed that." You do not want you don't want your reader to be coming like this. Here's your story, okay, and this is going to be your end result, and then this is your reader, and then as it comes farther along, the reader starts getting like this. And maybe they don't get the whole story, it doesn't fit. They came to some conclusions that were going to happen that didn't work out. Now that could be their fault, but it could also be your fault for having some loose ends, loose threads, not being able to keep everything within your plot, within your storyline. And so that's something you always got to watch out, is that storyline. The storyline, I use that term interchangeably with the plot. Other people may differ on that, but that's the way I do it. The plot and the storyline. Basically, it starts out as a plot and then develops into a much broader storyline, but still a plot. And you always want everything to be within the storyline. And so that storyline starts out real small and then gets bigger, bigger, bigger until it gets to the end. And that is what I want you to understand, is that third person, while it is perhaps the easiest method, there are things you got to watch out for. You got to watch out for those loose threads. You got to make sure that your characters stay within the plot. If they get outside the plot, then you have to have a reason. Don't you? I know in life things happen with apparently no reason whatsoever. In your story, that's one thing that is different. You always have to have a reason, because at the end of the book, you want to pull it all together. And so you have to be able to explain why something happened. If it did happen and it was a false clue, for instance, well, what was that false clue about? Why did that happen? Was it intentionally laid, or did it have some other meaning? What is it? So there are questions that can arise, and so you want to be prepared to have that in your concluding chapter or chapters. You want those to be taken. You don't have to wait until the last chapter, by the way, to take care of your results. They can fall by the wayside as you get closer and closer. And so some of your great mysteries have done that. And so that's today's episode, number 20, a major landmark in itself. We've been looking at first person and now third person. And then we're going to look at something else in another viewpoint in the next episode. I will see you there.